Well, we know that Laurence isn't on social media.
Well, if he was under 30, that would be suspicious, but he's not.
But in an article about his wife's death, it mentions that they were both members of the Rambling Club. And they have a social media page.
Nice.
And who's that?
It's Laurence and his wife.
And who's he got his arm round?
Wonky Ewan.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
Hello and welcome to episode 241 of the Talk of the Street, an unofficial Coronation Street catch-up podcast that was surprised by Laurence's meta-insights about Sean this week and half expected him to ask why Gary got away with killing Rana, why Billy forgave Todd off-screen, and where the fuck is Haley's coat? I'm Gavin.
And I'm coming to you live from WKRP in Cincinnati. We are spinning the hits.
With Alex Jones. On the AM dial.
On the low end of the dial.
The dusty end. You should explain what that's all about.
Tomorrow morning, I will be interviewed live on a television show.
Television show?
Radio show. See, this is why I'm so
Just bumming it
scared.
up far too much.
On a radio show about books.
There are such things as radio shows about books.
Yes. And talking about the auction that I curated at work. The rare book and paper auction, which is doing quite well. Thank you very much for asking.
So how did this come about?
When I first started working for Epic.
That sounds like I'm asking that question in a kind of interviewer
Right.
type way of asking a question just to sort of glean the information from you
Right.
for our audience. But I genuinely want to know as well.
When I first started working for Epic and working on the book auction, I was thinking about ways to promote it because we had done a movie poster auction that hadn't done quite as well as Brad had hoped. So I'm like, how?
Brad's your boss.
Yes.
Not Brad Pitt.
Yeah. More's,
He was also disappointed, but for different reasons.
more's the pity. Actually, I shouldn't say that considering
Anyway.
Brad Pitt may be problematic. But anyway, so, you know, I do belong to a number of Facebook groups, but I didn't really belong to any book groups. Well, I belong to a number of author groups, but not like rare book groups. So I joined a couple, and one of them just happened to have one of the administrators of the group does this radio show. So when I introduced myself and said that I was working on this auction, he asked me to be on his radio show.
This radio show is based in
Miami,
Florida.
Yes. He's in Miami. The actual studio, I believe, is in St. Pete's.
Huh.
So lots of radio waves jumping back and forth between mid-Michigan and
I imagine
southern Florida.
a satellite or two may be involved.
One would hope.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's exciting.
It's very exciting, you know, and I've talked to this guy a couple of times. We've talked on the phone a couple of times and everything. He seems very lovely. He's in his 70s. But, you know, he's been doing this for a long time and stuff. And I kind of love talking about this sort of thing because I love books and I love working with books.
As our Talk of the Street audience knows.
Yes. And I love every aspect of books.
So the chances are, dear listener, by the time you get to listen to this, the interview will have been and gone.
Yes.
But this will be posted a number of hours before you do this.
Right.
So how and where can people hear this?
Bucks on the Bookshelf is the name of the show. And you can find it on WDBFradio.com and WDBF.FM.
It's on the FM dial as well.
Yes.
Or has FM in the title.
Right. Well, yeah, that's the website.
Right.
You know, instead of .com, it's .fm.
Yeah, that was my
So, and I should be live on the radio around 10:25 a.m. tomorrow morning. I don't know what time that is in the United Kingdom
That's
or Canada.
Well, it depends where you are in Canada, but
Right.
it's the back of 3 o'clock in the afternoon in the UK.
So folks in the UK can listen on the website.
They can. So,
Yes.
Yeah.
So
That's quite exciting.
Do that if you would like. And then in April, I'm going to be a guest host on a horror podcast talking about Dawn of the Dead and other George Romero films that I love, just in time for Easter. The best time to talk about zombies.
They have risen.
They have risen indeed.
There you go.
I'm a Christian. I can make that joke.
No, I can just make that joke. Shall we preamble, my dear?
How was your week?
Yeah, it was fine. Shall we preamble, my dear?
Yes, please.
Give us some of that megahertz corrie news.
Former Corrie star Victoria Ekinoye celebrated her son Theo's second birthday and her own 41st a year after having a double mastectomy due to breast cancer. So it seems like the double mastectomy has worked and she seems happy and healthy, and Theo is adorable. And I wish her all the best.
Absolutely.
I really loved her on the show and kind of miss her. Another star of the stage will soon be joining the Cobbles. I'm a Celeb alum and musical star Ruthie Henschel hinted on Instagram she'll be playing a character named Estelle on the show, who I can only assume is modeled after our daughter. She'll be playing our daughter on Coronation Street. So I hope she has a very healthy hat and vest collection.
God help everyone involved.
And finally, mazel tov to Lucy Fallon and
Mazel
her
tov.
partner, Ryan Ledson, on the birth of their first child, a baby boy.
Did we know she was pregnant?
We did.
Did we?
I think we talked about it because when she released the information in September, we talked about it because initially they were very cautious about it because she had just had a miscarriage beforehand.
Oh, why do I remember nothing about this?
That's par for the course, my darling.
Yeah, I guess.
Par for the course. Just ask Dev. And that's Corrie News.
That's corrie news. Well, a smorgasbord of information about former and yet to be Corrie stars.
Correct. It was either that or we talk about all the speculation about who Stephen's going to murder next. And I don't want to talk about that.
Who do you think Stephen's going to murder next? I don't think he's going to murder anyone else. I think that's it. I think he's done. Or is he?
It's possible he might cause the death of someone else through meddling. But
He's
we'll
got his
see.
sights set on Carl, I think, at the end of this week.
Absolutely.
But we'll get to that
We will get to that.
much later.
Oh, no.
And that brings us quite neatly on to World Podcast for Coffee.
Ooh.
Thank you to Joe T for our coffees this week.
Thank you, Joe. Joe bought us a cup of Joe.
And his initial is T.
Oh.
If
Unfortunately,
only
neither.
his middle name was Coco. Or hot chocolate. Maybe it is. Who knows?
Who knows?
Thank you to Joe T. He says, "Hi guys, sending you both some long overdue coffees. Thanks for your dedication to the show and to the podcast. It's very much appreciated. Well, your donation to our coffee fund is also very much appreciated.
Absolutely.
Joe, thank
Yes,
you
this is why we
so
do
much. Yep. The Talk of the Street is and will always be free on your podcast provider and on the YouTubes. Don't forget the YouTubes.
Don't forget the YouTubes, even though we don't do that YouTube segment anymore. Thank God. Because I hated the theme song.
Yeah, that's now another section that we don't do. But if you think our show is worth anything more than the time it takes to listen to it, and if you want to show your appreciation, you can buy us next week's coffee by going to ko-fi.com, that's ko-fi.com/the talk of the street, and we'll be very appreciative, just like we are for Joe T this week.
Absolutely.
And just a reminder, because I think I forgot to mention this last week, if you buy a coffee in the next few weeks for us, I will reach out to you afterwards and say, do you want a copy of my book?
Yes.
Because I still have like half a dozen copies kicking about.
Ooh.
That if you want a copy, I will happily send you a copy. If you don't want a copy, that's
fine too.
absolutely fine as well. Don't feel like I'm bullying you into it. You can easily ignore my email or
Absolutely.
just say, no thank you very much, you would rather it went to someone else. So just as a reminder.
Yes.
And now, this.
No, not that.
Well, that's the YouTube thing that you were talking about.
You did that on purpose, didn't you?
Maybe not. And now this.
Welcome.
Oh, welcome to Last Year Tonight with me, John Oliver. Just enough time to quickly talk about pipe bomb through their cat flap.
It's a pipe bomb. I'm just...
That's that Mickey Mouse cartoon that I must have missed.
No, it's from... Remember there used to be that Harry Potter puppet show on YouTube, and they did a thing where there was a ticking pipe bomb, and they sang the song, Snape, Snape, Severus Snape, Dumbledore.
Nope.
No. Okay, well, that's a quote, because it's the Ron Weasley said, it's a pipe bomb.
There was a guy at my school who took 4 thick wooden dowlings, it's like legs of chairs kind of thing,
Right.
taped them together and stuck an old-fashioned alarm clock on the front of it and hid it in one of the boys' toilet cubicles.
Oh, hilarious.
School was evacuated.
Really?
He was expelled.
Ron Weasley's in that Knock in the Cabin movie that we haven't seen yet. Ron Weasley.
I thought that was him in the trailer.
Yeah, that is him.
Good for him. Apparently, the movie's a piece of shit. But anyway, the pipe bomb through the cat flap.
Yes. Yes, it was Ron Weasley on the street.
That's right. This was Adam worried about the vandalism he was enduring from an unknown source and predicted what would happen next. He'd get a pipe bomb through his cat flap, but not like that. I was Gavin, and you were celebrating the 10th year of our engagement.
Yes, it is the 11th year of our engagement this year.
Impeccable arithmetic. During that story, we reminisced about your mum either driving to the wrong airport or to the wrong Boston.
To the wrong terminal, I believe.
No, she was on the wrong interstate. I didn't know if I would applaud a couple getting engaged in public, and I'm not sure. And we were saddened that Alexandra Mardell had announced her departure from the show. After minor complications, Kelly is easing back into life at the Rose Gold Flat, but then Laura turns up with a claim that threatens to unsettle everyone again. That was a cancer claim, wasn't it?
Yes.
Daniel's conscience begins to get the better of him as the school's decision about Max's future looms. Fallout from Ash's decision to skip the University Open Day in Glasgow forces her and Nina to assess the effect Nina's mental state may have on their relationship. Mystery surrounding Amy's new boyfriend drives Tracy to distraction as her 18th birthday celebrations result in Steve sitting on an unexpected and uninvited guest. That was Jacob.
That was Jacob.
That was
Hey.
a year ago.
Yeah.
Sally's plans to spoil Tim's afternoon with his mum backfires as the movie of choice makes him reflect on the importance of blood relations and making up for lost time. Adam is on the receiving end of some strong-armed intimidation tactics and is quick to assume that the loser of a boundary dispute is behind it all. And it wasn't, it was Lydia.
No.
Gail shoots hoops. Everyone ignores Kirk's cries for help. And Carla just wants someone to do some work. Our moment of the week was Steve and Tim's declaration of love for each other. And our boring moment of the week was homeless Stu and Kelly's 90th conversation about how they'd got themselves back on their feet. And that was Coronation Street. And also the talk of the street, this time last year.
Wow. Carla still can't get anybody to do any work in that
Nope.
factory. Not for her, anyway.
Nope. They're all happy to do work for other people,
Right.
but just not for her. Shall we dive in, my dear?
Y'all, please.
Our first storyline tonight is Cocaine Bistro. This is about that time
Cocaine
that the
bear.
bistro found a package of cocaine in the woods, took it, and then leapt at an ambulance.
Right. And fed it to a bear Even though there are no bears in the UK, are there? Not anymore.
Yeah, there's probably bears.
Are there bears?
I don't know. There might be some bears in Scotland.
That's true.
I know there's one big bear
I
in
know.
Scotland.
I know quite a
And
few
that's my
bears.
Stoobsy.
I know quite a few bears in Scotland. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's the same as what I mean. On
I
Monday,
took a bear out of Scotland.
on Monday then, at the flat, Nick is trying to appease Leanne with eggs. She cannot be appeased with eggs.
No.
Sam can be appeased with eggs. And he is worried that Leanne is still angry at him. He points out, Nick that is, points out that bitches be crazy and says that he's the one in the shit books again. At the bistro, Leanne's been cleaning a table, which reminds her of a scene from Bugsy Malone, and she's more reflective as she talks to Nick about their hopes and dreams for the place. Ryan comes in to announce the arrival of an unexpected delivery, so Nick tells Leanne to go home and just stay out of this, stay out of trouble. Which, to her credit, she does.
Yes.
Nick deals with the delivery
It was kind of her idea.
and calls Damon to let him know. He's in the Rovers having his date with Dee Dee from last week. Dee Dee is talking American to impress him and then fucks off for a shite.
Yeah, she says restroom and he gives her a hard time for it.
Right. My friends would give me a hard time for that.
I've never heard you say restroom in your life.
I say bathroom now, I think.
Yes, bathrooms.
I don't say toilet though, which is what I'd probably say in the UK.
Restroom.
Toilet is so obscene after all.
Yes.
Damon answers the call and tells Nick about a change in plan. The stuff won't be picked up until tomorrow. And then we see some shady characters in a car outside the bistro.
With guns.
And they've got guns and they're putting some black leather gloves on.
Whoa.
Seems to have a leather fetish, which is absolutely fine.
It's absolutely fine. Look
It's
at
fine.
Bane.
It's
Look
fine.
at Bane.
Damon and Dee Dee
Don't look at Bane.
Catwoman. Damon and Dee Dee are, was that more rubber?
Latex.
Either way, it's fine. Damon and Dee Dee. And water sports if you want, you know, that's fine.
Yeah.
If that's what you're into.
Right, yeah, like Aquaman.
So long as it's all consensual.
All of
I'm not about
DC's,
to yuck anybody's yum here.
all of DC Comics is just one big kink.
Damon and Dee Dee are still on the Rovers. Nick comes in and Damon meets him at the bar. They go outside and Nick is papping his pants. He needs the drugs moved, but Damon puts the kibosh on that. He doesn't get his hands dirty, so nothing will be moving nowhere, no how.
That's a bit rich, isn't it? I don't get my hands dirty. It's your fucking drugs, asshole.
Right, which I think is
Move it.
what Nick says with his eyes. Sam arrives at the bistro and takes a seat at a booth as he waits on Nick when Johnny and Scott from a couple of years ago burst in and I meant to have the Miserloo music again, but oh well, never mind. And they demand from Ryan to hand over the drugs.
And Ryan,
they're armed. I think they're carrying Glock 9mm,
ooh,
which is the gun that my friend Brad let me shoot.
yeah, not my Brad though.
No,
Different Brad with guns
it's America. There's more than one Brad.
and more than one gun.
I think we might have just stumbled onto a problem. Sam calls Nick, and there's the sound of a gunshot. Nick, Leanne, and Damon all sprint to the bistro, where Ryan is remarkably calm for a man with a gun pointed at him.
Right.
He denies the existence of any drugs and insists that these guys have got the wrong place. Nick and Leanne burst in, and they're ushered over to sit with Sam. And while the gunmen are distracted, Damon launches himself out of the kitchen, takes the gunman out, and the two of them flee through the back while Damon is in hot pursuit. Everyone is safe. It was the bar that they shot.
The wall behind Ryan.
Was it?
So it was like a warning shot.
I see. Ryan, still pretty calm considering, goes off to call the cops. Damon comes back from chasing the blokes and seems to have some bloody knuckles. He claims that he's dealt with it. And when the police arrive, Damon tells Nick to play dumb, not to worry about the drugs. So, Nick is questioned about the gunmen from the police and why they were asking for drugs. Damon has given Nick the stink eye over the copper's shoulder. So Nick says that they must have made a mistake. What a
Right.
great excuse that was.
It's a different bistro. The cops do not seem fooled, though.
Well, I had something in mind as this is going down that thought, they're never going to address this, but they did. So let's continue.
Yes.
So they ask him about that time that the sniffer dogs arrived about a month ago. This is a bit
Right.
I thought they were never going to mention. And ask if Jacob Hay was involved in anything. Involved in what, says Nick, because the sniffer dogs didn't find anything that time. But then the cops finally noticed Damon sitting in the corner looking like butter wouldn't melt.
Right.
And the cops know who he is.
Absolutely.
Nick explains that Damon helped them financially but isn't involved in the business. They bring the sniffer dogs in again, and Nick is asked to unlock a cupboard in the kitchen, but again,
It's empty. Right. It smells like drugs, though.
For the second time, it smells like drugs, but it's empty.
Right. Yeah.
I wonder if you'd get forensics in for that,
Probably.
rather than just being the dumb Keystone cops that are looking in and saying,
Be
well,
like,
no, I guess it's empty, so there's nothing there.
I don't know. The dog's dumb. Yeah, you'd
But
absolutely.
the first dog was retiring.
Right.
This was a new dog.
Right. You'd absolutely get forensics in there.
I think so. Anyway, plot says that couldn't happen.
Were you kind of stunned by the way the cops came into the bistro?
A little bit. They were a little...
Because they stormed in, they had guns drawn and were pointing guns at people.
Including Sam.
Right.
Tell him to get his hands up.
Right. I was shocked by that.
Yeah, it was kind of shocking, I guess.
Because this show is not set in America. In America, that makes sense.
Well, they don't know who the gunmen are and who the gunmen aren't.
Well, the gunmen had fled already.
But they didn't know that.
They should have, because Ryan called them after they'd fled. So you'd think that Ryan would have said, they fled. They're not here anymore.
No, I'm going to give them the benefit of this, because I remember the last time that the bistro was held. What was it? The bistro that was held hostage? Because Roy came out and said, it's okay. The gunman has been... I can't remember exactly what it was,
Right.
but Roy said, look, everything's fine.
Uh-huh.
And the police went, oh, well, okay, if Roy says everything's fine.
Right.
And I thought, that's a kind of... Why are you taking Roy's word for this and you don't know who Roy is?
Well, Craig knows
So
who
this
he is.
feels like at least they were erring on the side of caution. But yeah, they were very
Very
heavy-handed as
aggressive.
they came in.
Very aggressive.
Mm-hmm. But it's like here when there's a...
Well, that's the
When
thing.
there's a lockdown at school and the
It shouldn't
kids
be
have
like
to
here.
come out with their hands in their heads and stuff.
Right, yeah. Because they could be shot if they don't. Because the gunman is typically a kid.
Right. Well,
But-
no, this felt
but-
like it was a similar thing.
Yeah, but it's a different country. And it's a country with fewer guns. I don't know. It really shocked me.
Outside later, it's all died down. Damon grabs Nick, and for someone who doesn't get his hands dirty, Damon sure does have his hands dirty. He admits about the slight turf war that he's involved in, but it's sorted and it's nothing to worry about. Nick is furious that his son could have got shot, and Damon seems to take this to heart for a moment before handing the package over to Nick for him to look after for a few hours, and then he's going to be out of their hair for good. It's weird that the most trustworthy person Damon has in his life to look after these drugs is Nick.
Right.
Damon with
Doesn't
his
he
network
have-
of
Right, doesn't
suppliers
he
and
have-
stuff. Right.
Doesn't he have people under him? If he doesn't have people under him, why did he get rid of Jacob?
He's bound to have people under him because he could order the hit on Harvey in the prison.
Right. Yeah.
So he's,
So where are these other people? At least with Harvey, we saw some of his other people.
and where is Sharon?
Yeah, exactly. They couldn't afford to get her back. That's where
couldn't afford
Sharon
her.
is.
Couldn't afford her ticket back from the... Is she in the US now? I'm not sure. She did
Wasn't
go back
she?
to. She did go back to the US briefly, at least
Right.
after she left Corrie the last time.
Right. I think she might still be here or in Australia. Did she go to Australia?
I don't think
Or
so.
Somebody else left the show and went to Australia.
You're thinking of...
I'm
Emma.
not thinking of Emma.
I think she's thinking of Emma.
I'm not thinking of Emma.
But yeah, you'd think that would have someone that would...
Or it would at least mention Sharon.
Because look at Nick.
Yeah.
He has the expression of a man who is permanently shitting himself.
Right.
Is that who you want to give your 50
No.
grand's worth of product to hold on to?
Especially
Especially what happened the last time.
it kind of makes me feel like this whole thing is just Damon gets a hard-on for power and for making people look like they're going to shit themselves.
He's got a thing for losing drugs and getting getting other people arrested.
It's short man syndrome. And let's be honest, Nick is the tallest person there. So
Well, true. At home, Leanne comes in, relieved that everything is now over and the drugs are gone.
what are they?
Nick looks guilty and has to explain that the drugs are currently in his underpants. Then they get a late night visit from Damon. They think he's there to pick up the drugs, but he's actually there to drop off a set of decks for Sam by way of an apology. This right here is totally fucked up, says Leanne.
Yes.
And I thought
And
it was
she's not wrong.
a weird end to the episode where everyone thinks he's there to pick up the drugs, but in actual fact he's there to drop off a present for Sam.
Right. Yeah, it was weird.
It's a he's got a kind of dual personality thing going on here.
Yeah.
Where he has this supposed hardened drug kingpin, but also he kind of likes the kid.
Right. And yet he's a shit dad to his own kid.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's because Jacob was just a massive disappointment.
Right, because he flushed drugs down the toilet.
That didn't help. On Wednesday,
So now it's
Leanne-
cocaine fish we need to worry about.
Cocaine Johnny. Oh no, Johnny's jumping at an ambulance. On Wednesday,
Zombie Johnny jumps in an ambulance.
Leanne is up early, sitting in a permanent state of readiness. Sam apparently set up the decks in the middle of the night. The atmosphere is frosty between Leanne and Nick. She tells him to play on Damon's weak spot of Sam and tell him to pick up his fucking drugs pronto or they're getting flushed. At the bus stop with Leanne, Sam was confused again about why people do bad things. Passing Adam, a solicitor no less, explains that people in general are awful, and the less everyone has to do with everyone else, the better it'll be for everyone.
He's not wrong.
Then PC Tinker is in the bistro explaining to everyone that 2 suspects have been caught for the robbery, or the attempted robbery, yesterday. He wants to clarify a few things with Nick, but Nick is out and about. PC Tinker is confident that the suspects will get charged thanks to DNA, which he says can pin anyone to anything. Well, that had me worried. We can pin anything on anyone, thanks to the magic of DNA. Leanne gets on the blower
And I like that.
to Nick and tells him to get this shit sorted out with Damon. So Nick finally gets a hold of Damon on the phone and tells him to pick up his property or he can sieve it out of the Victoria Court sewage pipe. Damon doesn't take kindly to this, but knows that Nick ain't bluffing. And I'm wondering, did Nick ask permission from Leanne to borrow her balls before he made this phone call to Damon? Because Leanne seems to be the only one who's capable of handling this.
Well, she's the one who told him to do this, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, use his weakness for Sam.
And which, to be fair to Nick, he does. He says
Yeah,
that
it's very smart.
my kid was cowering under a table, can't
Right.
sleep, getting panic attacks
Right.
and all that sort of stuff.
Which isn't necessarily true, but that's fine.
It's not true of Sam.
No.
It is true
Of
of
Nick.
Ryan, who is in the office and is a blubbering wreck.
Well, he had a gun pointed at him.
I really love this because on the Monday, I'm complaining that Ryan's taking this all in his stride a little bit too much.
Right, absolutely.
But the excitement of yesterday has caught up with Ryan and he's had a moment of clarity about his life and his relationship with Alia and his old plans that he had for setting himself up in Ibiza, and
Right.
he's fucked it all up.
Yes, he has.
He's destined to die a waiter in Weatherfield,
Alone.
about 10 feet away from where he was born, so near Wendy Neeson's vagina then.
Oh, no.
But seeing him kind of break down a little bit, because he was sitting in the office and Leanne walks in and he gets the fright of his life because he's just so tense and he's so on edge. And I thought it's kind of rare for them to show that kind of PTSD sort of aspect of
Right.
what he's gone through. Like you're right.
Especially in a man.
He's had a gun pointed at him.
Right. That gun went off. He thought he was going to die, but the guy hit the wall instead. But it went off fairly close to him.
So we saw him, the first thing he's doing after that is he's thinking very rational, I'm going to call the police and I'm going to get this, I'm going to follow the process that I have in my head for
Right.
how someone deals with this sort of thing.
Yes.
But after the dust has kind of settled, he's realised
Holy shit.
it's really affected him. Yeah,
Yeah,
as I
I
imagine
almost died.
it would have. So I thought that was really well done.
Yes.
Damon appears at Nick's and picks up the package from the breakfast counter. Damon seems more concerned with setting up the decks properly for Sam, who he rather likes. He wants to see a video of Sam spinning some tracks later. He takes the package down to his car, sticks it in the trunk, and as he's about to drive away, PC Tinker in his big boy police car arrives and arrests Damon for drugs.
Dum dum dum.
Leanne, when she goes up to the flat, is furious that Nick grassed up Damon right outside the flat because now they're fucked, and she goes about cleaning the flat with wet wipes to get rid of all the drug traces for when Damon inevitably grasses them up to the cops.
Yes.
And Nick's point is, he's going to know it was me anyway.
Right.
No matter when it happens.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and even if it wasn't him, he would assume it was him. And see, Nick grew up differently than Leanne as far as the whole I ain't no grass thing is concerned.
Right. Later, PC Tinker is back at the bistro and he wants to speak to Leanne and Nick at the station. He needs to get details about Damon, who is refusing to speak, from them so they can strengthen their case. They both look surprised when Craig announces that Damon and Harvey are brothers. What?
What? Well, actually, stepbrothers.
Brothers,
What?
you say? Tinker doesn't pick up on this rather obvious discomfort at the questioning and the prospect of more. But it must go well at the station because they're back in the flat, recapping that they didn't know anything, so didn't really say anything. Sam is curious why Damon was arrested, and when they explain he's a drug dealer and related to Harvey, Sam goes Raj and pushes over the decks.
Yes, he does.
He wants to know if Leanne and Nick knew about Damon's character, and when Nick admits that he's known for a few days, longer than Leanne's known, Sam no longer wants Nick to stay with him, says it's too dangerous, and so throws Nick out of his own flat.
Which was brilliant. I
You
love
think?
that part. I love that part, yeah. It was good.
Because I was like, really? Nick's going to do this just because this wee voice says get out of your flat.
Yeah.
Well, you fucking go if you're so concerned.
No.
You find somewhere else to stay. This is my flat.
No. He considers the fact that here's this kid who's just now finally gotten closure for the shooting of his mother and the death of his mother.
Mm-hmm.
And here Nick is dragging all of this stuff back in to the house. And we knew Nick, even before then, was feeling guilty about all of this. So I'm not surprised that he was like, all right, I'll go sleep on my mom's couch.
It's almost like this was a really, really bad idea. Getting the money from Harvey in the first place.
Yeah.
I quite liked how Sam wanted to get closure with Damon next. Wanted to
Right.
go down to the station to speak to Damon. 'Cause
Yeah. And
he's
they're
got
like, no, you cannot do this.
he's got the taste for
Right.
speaking with drug kingpins.
Right.
On Friday at the bistro, Leanne comes in with a redone rota that means that they won't have to work together. And this was a little bit of a surprise for me as well, because I thought it was Sam that was ultimately the one that was pissed off at Nick.
Right.
And Leanne had just either kind of let it go or
she
was,
kind of has to stay.
But by redoing the rotas so that they don't have to work together, she seems to be like causing a further separation between the two of them.
Well, we've known ever since she found out, she's been really pissed at Nick. So it kind of seems like this whole Sam thing has given her an excuse to further separate from him.
It's just odd that they haven't come out and explicitly said that Leanne wants him out,
Yeah.
but seemed to want him out of the flat anyway,
Right.
because of Sam,
Right.
not because of what she thinks herself.
Right.
And she's well entitled to feel this exactly the same way.
Right. Yeah. She's kind of piggybacking on it.
Because Harvey
Yeah. Was trying
Harvey
to
killed
murder
Natasha,
her.
but was trying to kill her, yeah. Nick wants to extend a branch to Sam, but Leanne thinks it's too early after all the betrayal. Then Dee Dee comes in looking for Damon, so Leanne brutally breaks the news. He's a bastard drug dealer. Dee Dee realises that she's been stood up by a drug dealer.
Yes.
And that seems to make it all right. Being stood up.
Right. Yes.
Then later, Hope and Sam are chatting about the events from the bistro hold-up. Not that one, or that one.
No,
That one.
This one.
Sam explains how much Nick has let him down, and Hope welcomes him to the real world and predicts that you'll get a lush present out of it.
Absolutely.
And at the flat later, Sam and Leanne are chatting about mushrooms on toast. I don't think I've ever had mushrooms on toast. Beans on toast, absolutely. Spaghetti hoops on toast, you bet. Ideally, what you want is beans with mini sausages.
Like hot dogs.
Smaller than that.
Oh.
Like little chipolatas, maybe the size of your, maybe the size of your thumb. Yeah, size of your thumb.
Interesting.
The Heinz that make the baked beans also do a baked beans and pork sausages, and that was my favourite.
Ah.
And when I was a kid, my parents couldn't stand the smell of them cooking because I
Right.
just ate them
All the time.
Much like me with the sausage patties from living in a hotel for 2 months.
Oh, yes.
So anyway, yes, they're having mushrooms on toast, which Sam thinks is his favourite food of all time. When Nick comes in with a gift, it's a fancy lens for his telescope, just as Hope predicted. Sam tells his dad to fuck off out of his own flat and take your bloody lens with you. And to his credit,
He does.
Nick does that. Back at the bistro, Nick and Dee Dee are comparing wounds. Dee Dee has it worse because she was stood up by a drug dealer. And this conversation makes Nick smile, and it's the first time he's smiled all day.
And probably all week.
A little worried about that, the two of them together?
No.
No?
No. No.
Maybe?
No.
No.
No. She's waiting for Zidane to come back. That's the relationship I want.
Zinedine Zidane. That's as far as we got with that this week. So, oh, what a tangled web we weave, eh? From Nick.
Yes.
With this whole getting the money
Right.
from
Absolutely.
Aadi was just the worst idea.
Right.
This is his.
It just fell
This is it coming home
out
to
of
roost.
control so quickly.
Another raid on the bistro, though.
Well,
Would
where else
anybody
are they
eat
going
there?
to raid?
Would anybody eat there anymore? I mean, because you seem to have like a 1 in 3 chance that there's going to be an armed robbery there while you're having your dinner.
Well, where else are they going to eat?
A speed
'Cause-
dial which catches fire and has stabbings.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe Roy's rolls then.
It gets very crowded in there. And also, hasn't something happened at Roy's Rolls as well?
Or maybe just make your dinner and eat at home. Cost of living crisis.
Yeah.
Eat at home. But then it has to prove that these
he
people know how to
says-
use a knife and fork.
He says after, a whole week, a whole month of eating out quite a bit.
Who?
Us. Remember the conversation we had earlier?
Oh, last week was an awful lot of being out for dinner because we were out.
Right. Which is,
So we're pretty good at actually cooking through the week and
yeah,
stuff like that.
we are fairly good. Friday night's pizza night, but other than that. Oh, and then Wednesday night's trivia night, which is just so ridiculous. Like, I paid over $100.
I've warned you, this can't go on. It can't go on. That's like $400 a month. You could have
both-
a $20,000 car loan for that.
And both Benny and Sally did not finish their dinners, and their dinners are sitting in the fridge right now as we speak.
Yeah, I had some of it for my lunch. The pasta.
The
this is fascinating.
The bodega mac and cheese. Yeah, that's what that was. Bodega mac and cheese.
I know. I had it.
Yeah, it's like the bodega fries that you like.
I know. I had it.
Far too many carbs in that restaurant. Anyway,
we can't be spending $100
every
there
week.
every Wednesday just on the off chance of winning $30 at trivia.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and the food's not that great.
It isn't. Sorry. Anyway,
Anyway.
my point remains that the bistro, especially recently, has been the scene of a little bit too much of the high octane developments
Everywhere.
that you think would put something out of business.
I don't understand why people live on that street. It's just one gunfight after another.
So how's Damon going to get out of this then? Because he was pretty much caught red-handed.
Yeah. Yeah, he was.
His fingerprints are on the package.
Yep.
I think Nick was fairly clever about doing that.
Yeah.
Making sure that it was just on the breakfast counter for him to pick up. So
Right.
Nick didn't have to touch it.
Right.
Although presumably Nick had already touched it, but
Maybe he wiped it.
right. With Leanne's wet wipes.
He can try to grass Nick and Leanne up, but in doing so, he's just further implicating himself because obviously Nick and Leanne didn't start a drug dealing ring.
No.
Not after the whole Harvey thing.
No, and nobody put that package in his car other than him.
Right.
So there's nothing that he can say that's going to excuse why he's got drugs on him.
Right.
But again, I'm thinking, is this a character that's just been brought in for a very short period of time, basically to give an excuse for Jacob to leave, and then he goes out of it himself? It seems,
I don't know,
it seems
man.
a bit
I don't know.
pointless.
So much of the show is pointless.
And he's
these
kind of
days.
setting himself up with Dee Dee potentially, and you know, he was a character, or he is a character who seems to have very quickly got his feet and his legs under the table.
Right.
A little
Yes,
bit.
because he's a very charming man.
Yeah. So it seems like a bit of a waste
And
to get
he's-
rid of him.
And he's a believable charming man, unlike Stephen, who apparently is charming, but I don't see it.
What about the contrast that I mentioned about him supposedly being this criminal mastermind, or at least mind, and still having this kind of paternal side for Sam? How do you think those things are working together?
I don't like it, considering the way he treated his own flesh and blood.
Mm-hmm.
It makes it really not believable to me that he'd have this soft spot for somebody else's kid
Yeah.
when he was so brutal with Jacob.
I mean,
When you tell your own son that he was a mistake, you don't get a soft spot for somebody else's bespectacled child.
right. Although in isolation, I do quite like it. Suddenly, here's Uncle Damon turning up with expensive DJ equipment and headphones, and
It didn't look
And
like
stuff.
expensive DJ equipment.
Well-
That looked like cheap crap DJ equipment.
oh,
That looked cheaper than Ryan's stuff.
didn't realise DJ Helen was an expert in such matters.
Well, just the way Sam was able to so easily push that thing over.
Well, that's more to do with the stand it was on rather than the quality of the decks.
Well, that's the stand is part of the decks, isn't it?
No.
And like the whole thing should have been much heavier than it was. It was like a giant empty cup that Sam pushed over.
No, I'm not starting that.
Giant empty cup of the week.
A way back into this for Nick? Surely, yes, right?
Well, eventually he's going to have to because he's legally obligated to take care of that child. So unless Sam goes to court to get emancipated, which I don't even know if that's a thing in the UK. I'm
Yeah,
assuming it
probably
is,
is.
probably. And Sam would be a smart enough kid to figure out how to go about doing that. But
One of the nice things about this for me is that it's given a chance to see Leanne and Sam together.
yes, which is nice.
And that is nice,
nice.
especially how difficult that relationship was for Leanne at the start. But
Right.
She's sitting at the bus stop with him. She's sitting having dinner with him, talking about mushrooms on toast and stuff. It's like,
The difficult thing is that once again, Leanne's own son seems to have disappeared after that whole.
I thought you were talking about Oliver. I was like, I don't know how to break this thing.
You know, I'm not talking about Oliver. I'm talking about the big one.
I know that he is her son, but I don't think of him as her son.
Right. But
That's Peter's son.
still, once again, works at the factory, has completely disappeared after Jacob leaves.
Yeah. It's almost like they don't know what to do with him. Oh well, let's move
well.
on to our next storyline this evening, which is Mitch, the Gabby Cabbie. We might as well phone exposition taxis so they can
Wait.
send Mitch round with some exposition for
Was
us.
it Good Taxi or Hood Taxi? Something like that.
I didn't notice.
Of course not.
On Monday, at Eileen's, Mary has made a communal buffet that no one gives a shit about
Right, because it's just toast.
until Laurence arrives with some carbohydrates, and everyone is excited by this, and Mary is pissed. Eileen leaves and sees Todd arrive in what I said was an Uber at the time, but I think it was just a regular taxi. Dirty stop out, says Eileen. They all see Sean and Laurence leave, and that seems to upset the driver, who knows Lawrence's name. Eileen says that's her lodger's boyfriend. The driver tells Eileen to tell her lodger to watch his back.
But not like that.
Todd drops into the cab office later to talk this through with Eileen, this weird incident. Todd has found that the driver's name was Mitch, but that's all he's managed to get. Eileen tells him to tell Sean just as Sean comes in, and he wants to know what they're talking about, and Todd pretends that he has to rush off, but Sean demands that they talk this over at lunchtime. So at the lunchtime meeting, Todd explains what happened, and Sean obviously reckons that Todd is jealous. Todd insists that he's just the messenger, and Sean tells him to keep his nose out, but not like that, and calls Laurence for a Rovers meeting later. So Todd and Sean meet Laurence, and Sean shows Laurence the Uber photo of Mitch. Laurence doesn't recognise him, saying that he looks like a wonky Ewan McGregor, so that was pretty funny.
That was funny.
Sean explains that Mitch is warning people about Laurence, and Laurence has been used by all this. Back home, Todd discovers that Eileen has been doing some digging of her own, and there's an article about his wife's death, which mentions a rambling club that they were both members of, and they have a Facebook page, because Mitch doesn't have any social media. Not Mitch. Laurence doesn't have any social media, but
Correct.
this rambling club does have a Facebook page.
Whoa.
And on that page, there's a picture of Laurence, his wife, and Mitch.
What?
All together. Laurence lied.
Dum dum dum.
They decide to get more info before handing their dossier over to Sean. Meanwhile, Sean and Laurence are in the Rovers. Sean apologises for Todd and his stupid claims and says that he believes Laurence 95% of the time. Laurence is pleased with this, thinks it's sweet that Todd is so protective, and he has a surprise for Sean. He's going to take him on a mini break this weekend.
To a secret location.
So on Wednesday, over breakfast, Eileen and Todd are working on tracking down the Cabbie for further questioning. Todd doesn't know if Mitch was a first name or a last name, and Vogel is no fucking help.
No.
Oi, you leave Vogel out of this. They take a reminder that Vogel.co.uk points to us.
You know who they need? They need that wee lassie from that missing movie. She would have solved this in no time.
The wee lassie from the missing movie certainly would have.
Yes.
So they take the investigation to Nina's Rolls, where Eileen has had no luck talking to the Ramblers who refuse to dox their members. So they end up booking cabs from the same firm until they get a Mitch match. Great plan. And after 10 goes, Todd does get a Mitch match.
Woohoo!
From the Cabbie Mitch. In the bistro, Laurence and Sean are doing their insurance forms for the weekend break. It turns out Laurence loves filling out insurance forms, which is a bit of a red flag for Sean, but
Also,
not the one that it should be.
Insurance forms for a weekend? Mm-hmm. When was the last time you filled out insurance forms for a weekend?
I've never filled out any holiday insurance forms for years. And it's terrible because I should have. Because you should be insured when you go on holiday. Because
right, yeah,
if something goes wrong, especially coming here.
Right.
Because if you're not insured, you're fucked.
Yeah.
So a number of times I came over here and that had no insurance. But for a weekend, if you're going abroad, probably you should.
Yeah. Is it really that easy to go abroad after Brexit?
Yeah, you just need a passport.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. I don't know. It just seemed really weird that he's filling out this, possibly lose your life insurance for a weekend away.
Well, all that comes baked into the insurance policy. All these policies have like $1 million or £1 million death benefit things paid into it. Or accidental deaths and stuff.
We go on vacation all the time in America, which is terrifying, and never fill out any insurance forms.
No, well, we have insurance.
That's true. We do. Would that cover
anything
everything?
else that you want me to debunk for you? Or are we good for that?
No, I suppose
Yeah,
we're
well,
all right.
life insurance is good for that.
Yeah, I suppose. Mm-hmm. Yes. You haven't died yet, so...
Haven't died yet.
Not for lack of trying.
Right. So, yes, all this is a red flag for Sean.
Yes.
Laurence gives Sean's name for his next of kin. Sean gives Eileen's name. So in the cab with Mitch, it's a great time for exposition. The next of kin thing was strange because I don't think I've ever filled out next of kin on holiday insurance forms. But anyway.
Right, because your next of kin is your next of kin.
Right. So in the cab with Mitch, it's a great time for exposition. Mitch reckons that Laurence pushed his wife off a mountain on the ramble as he was worried that she was going to find out that he was gay and psychotic apparently and having an affair with Mitch. Mitch asks them not to contact him again. This is like a point and click adventure, I thought, at this point. Meet the cab driver, get some information, go somewhere else, pick up the vase of flowers, go over here,
Right, yeah.
feed
He's
it
like,
to the rat.
What are those characters called that are just, that are a non-playable character? Mm-hmm. Yeah,
NPCs.
an NPC. He is the NPC of this whole story. He feeds you information and then he fucks off.
Who was it that described it? Was it George Lucas? Described scenes like this as eat your broccoli scenes. Scenes that you need to just get through and need to get some exposition out there. Nobody's going to enjoy it, but you just have to get through it. So we were all eating our broccoli for that, I think. In the pub, Todd is amazed that Laurence could be a potential feeling. Sean tells Todd and Eileen about the next of kin thing and how it's romantic. Todd practically chokes in his beer and wonders if Mrs. Laurence had insurance. Later, outside the pub, Eileen tells Sean what they found out about Laurence. They explain about the cab driver in the photo and what Mitch reckoned happened to Laurence's wife. Sean does not take it well. He calls Todd a bitter, jealous, lying, selfish, nasty bit of work and says that Eileen is a bitter, jealous, lying, selfish, nasty bit of work's mother. Eileen thinks it's undoubted that Laurence had an affair, but this cuts no ice with Sean and he throws him out just as Laurence comes in and Sean announces that he wants to be his next of kin. But his confidence wavers later when Laurence gives Sean a clue about their destination and hopes that Sean has a head for heights because we are going to be going up, 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 up. But not like that. On Friday, breakfast at Eileen's, she and Todd apologise to Sean for jumping to conclusions yesterday, but Todd still doesn't trust Laurence, and Sean's clearly having doubts himself. Laurence and Sean are in Nina's Rolls chatting about their upcoming break, Laurence making Sean even more worried when he announces that the place they're going to has no phone signal.
Yeah.
And at home, Sean is now up to his tits with anxiety about the trip and demands to know where Laurence is taking them. So Laurence tells him it's Switzerland, which Sean is quick to point out is a home to Dignitas, which was just
Right. It's weird that Laurence...
the first thing that his mind jumped to was Dignitas.
It's weird that Laurence doesn't have the self-awareness here to say, maybe this is a bad idea, and maybe the way I talk about next of kin makes people uncomfortable, and maybe I shouldn't take my boyfriend on a trip to someplace with no phone signal. Maybe these are red flags that I shouldn't be waving in my boyfriend's face.
Laurence thinks Sean is behaving weird, which he is, but Laurence, as you say, is also behaving weird. And then Laurence heads off for snacks, asking Sean not to look in his bag when he's gone. And again...
Yeah, why would you say that? Why would you say that? He has no reason to go into your bag. Why would you say that?
Sean has soiled himself when Todd and Eileen come home. He's convinced now that Laurence wants to kill him, and he thinks Laurence has got torture implements and murder implements in his bag. Eileen thinks that he's overreacting, and Sean goes to check inside the bag when Laurence comes back in, and Sean immediately accuses him of killing his wife and harbouring plans to kill him. Laurence is bamboozled by this and calls Sean cuckoo for caca. All that's in the bag is undies and a lovely present for Sean. It's some
bronzer.
fake tan, right?
Yeah, because he's like, I bought you bronzer so that you could still get a tan. And it's like, has Sean ever been tan in his life? I don't think so.
It was that time he was homeless.
That's not a tan.
Oopsie. Todd tries to explain about Mitch. Laurence admits to lying about that, but it doesn't make him a murderer. Rather, it makes him guilty of having an affair that he'd rather not admit to. He asks if Sean thinks he's capable of this. And Sean doesn't answer.
No.
Later, the two of them sit down for a chat, and Laurence explains what really happened with the death of his wife, how she went on a solo hike and the weather wasn't great and she fell off a mountain. Remarkably, Sean still seems to think that the two of them can be an item and go on holiday, but Laurence quickly disabuses him of both of these things. You're dumped. Laurence is leaving when he's stopped by Todd, who tries to take responsibility for everything and begs Laurence to give Sean another chance. But Laurence remembers that he's already given Sean a second chance at Christmas. Sean is a throwback to a bygone era, says Laurence. And I was like, oh, here we go. We're getting out all the all the baggage that the writers want to relieve themselves of is
Yeah.
just coming out here. And they called Todd a dinosaur too. They have trust issues, so they assume that he's a killer. There's no coming back from that. And
Yeah.
put like that, yeah, you can see why there's no coming back
Right.
from that.
But again, no self-awareness. Awareness of the faults of others. Not aware of the faults in himself, where not once does he stop to think, well, wait a minute. What on earth have I done that would make you think that this could possibly be true?
So they've been going out for a while. They split up.
Right.
They got back together
Yes.
at Christmas. So let's just say Christmas is day 0. That's when we're starting this all again. So they've been going out together for a month and a bit. If a man and a woman were dating for a month,
Yeah.
didn't live together or anything, just dating for a month,
Right.
and the guy says he's going to take the girl away for a romantic break.
Refuses to say where it
Refuses
is.
to say where it is.
Says there's
Talks
no
about next
cell
of kin
charge.
and death insurance. There's not going to be any reception, and then we're going to be totally isolated for the
Right.
entire weekend.
Oh,
I
and
think,
we're also going to the place where my wife died.
I think on that basis, I think the woman would have every right to run a mile.
She'd be calling the cops.
Oh, and don't look in my bag.
Right. Yeah. No. She'd be running a mile.
Or she should be.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So
But there's no
so,
self-awareness
so
there.
I guess it is a little bit of both of them are to blame for this.
Because remember, initially, Sean didn't believe Todd and was absolutely confident in Laurence. And then Laurence started to act weird. Mm-hmm. And it
for
seemed...
plot reasons.
Right. But still, have some self-awareness there, pal.
Mm.
There are other places to hike. Because this whole thing is, well, I like to hike. I like to go in the outdoors. Look at Sean. Does he really look like the outdoorsy type? Does he really
Well,
look...
there was that time he was homeless, so...
Again, not the same thing.
Okay, so I'm just checking.
Sean is not the type to go on a hike by himself
Doesn't like
in the
camping.
middle of the woods. Does not like the woods. Does not like fresh air. Mm-hmm. Prefers Ibiza.
It did, however, all give us that scene with Laurence and Todd. I thought that was great.
Yes.
I thought it was like... I just wish they'd kind of taken it a little bit further, because for all intents and purposes, the viewer was Laurence there.
Yes.
And I'm all for that.
Yeah.
That was a great little moment of, here is a character who's just come into the show for a brief period, has gone out again, and is just remarking on, y'all are institutionalized.
Right.
And
Y'all-
I'm here to hold a mirror up
Y'all
to that.
are crazy.
So, what we doing with Sean here?
I don't know. I honestly don't know.
Because with the
Because it
Frank
seemed
thing,
like it seemed like we finally got him in a decent relationship where he's tolerable.
more thanks to Glenda than anything else.
Right, but still.
But him and Laurence were fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm reading articles where Anthony Cotton is saying how irritating he finds Sean, and I'm like, well, do you know what? That helps me like Sean a little bit, knowing that.
Right.
And it's terrible that, because it kind of suggests a inability to separate character from actor.
Right.
But
It helps to know-
I like when the actor is kind of on our
He's
side a little
self-aware.
bit,
Right. Yeah.
That Sean is for the most part a difficult to like character.
Yes.
And quite irritating. But he's been better recently. That relationship they had with Frank lasted, a couple of months maybe?
Mm-hmm.
Frank has this mysterious secret and is banished. Laurence comes in, has this mysterious secret, is banished, comes back.
Right.
The mysterious secret re-emerges and is banished again. And it's like, well, this feels like we're getting to the point where we're making Sean so unhappy that he has to leave.
Right. But he can't leave because his son is now a permanent part of the show. So it feels like they've further cemented him into the show.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I don't know why they just keep on giving him relationships that are doomed. For the longest time, he had no relationship.
Right.
He was always talking about going out, but
Right. But we never saw him
any evidence
dating.
of it. Right. It feels like it's a weird track to go down, and this is not the only weird track that we're taking characters down these days.
No, they're all weird tracks.
And I don't think we have a history of doing that as much.
I don't know.
Oh well.
Oh well.
Next storyline.
Let's please just stop talking about it.
Is that's how Royston rolls.
Yeah, I hate this. I'm going on record to say I hate this. This feels like from one extreme to the other, and I hate it.
From the Sean storyline to this storyline?
No.
Oh, within
from
the story. Okay.
Roy the Luddite to Roy the phone addict.
To the doom scroller. Yep.
Yeah.
On Monday, Evelyn is in Nina's rolls to show off her snazzy new scarf. I liked her scarf though.
It was nice.
To Roy, but Roy doesn't give a fuck because he's half asleep because he's spending these nights watching movies about Roman digs or something
Porn.
on his phone. He's watching Roman porn. Hey,
You know what?
so long as it's consensual.
You know what? I bet if you searched it right now, you'd find it.
I'm sure you would. This is all Nina's fault. We still haven't found Hayley's coat. We should be focusing on that. Why aren't we focusing on that?
Yes. Again, another reason why I hate this.
Evelyn got the scarf, bargain of the century, at the charity shop where Joy used to work. Roy points
gone.
Roy points out that Joy has been moved on to Oldham, which I think is code for something. And Nina says if Evelyn worked at the shop, she'd get first dibs on the bargains and get to work with Roy. And I don't think that first part's true. I don't think the workers in charity shops get first dibs on anything. In fact, I think there's rules against that.
Yeah.
Back home, Mary comes over with some old comic annuals for the girls, and there's a Beano annual from 1980 that I definitely had. Mary explains that she's taken the rest of her treasures down to the charity shop, weekday afternoons. It's a gold mine, she says.
Yeah.
Back in Nina's rolls, Carla is helping behind the counter while Shona is in that London. Roy is so nose deep in his phone about the Roman fort excavation that he's breaking plates and burning toast. And later when Nina comes back, Carla warns her that when Roy gets obsessed about something, he really gets obsessed.
Right. He hyperfixates because
serious.
Because he's autistic.
Right.
Only we'll never say that out loud in the show.
On the Coronation Street show.
Yes.
We'll say it here.
Yes.
Frequently.
Right.
At the end of the day, Roy is still checking his notifications. He's on social media now because that's how Royston rolls. Carla is very worried about
That's
this.
so dumb.
As Roy explains about the like function that he keeps on hitting. Then Evelyn arrives to announce that she's working at the charity shop again. The place is a mess, but she's found an old train that she thinks might be of interest to Roy, and this is the only thing that gets his attention. He says he'll check it out tomorrow. But he doesn't, because on Wednesday he misses his volunteer session at the charity shop because he's found a bat app that plays ultrasonic bat noises.
Yeah, to the point where humans can hear them, which actually sounds kind of cool.
So later, Evelyn has to deliver the model train to Roy, and he's thrilled to bits with it. Evelyn wants him to price it, so Roy texts a mate. And Roy's sending texts and having mates. This is just so wrong.
It's so wrong. I mean, we know that he has mates outside of the street because there's the Bat group, which, let's be honest, is mostly
Him and Nina.
Nina and him and Asha. And then there's other two weird people who we saw briefly and then never again.
Later, Roy produces the valuation, but it's too late because Evelyn has already sold it for a tenner, even though it was worth 40 times that. After closing, Roy is still on his phone playing chess, and now Nina's starting to get pissed off with him. She tells him to put his phone down and watch a documentary with her, which he agrees to do, but quickly, as he's in conversation, he picks his phone back up because there's something he needs to check.
Right.
On Friday, Roy is obsessing over his weather app. Nina, who is, again, to blame for all this, is trying to ignore it. Roy insists that he isn't addicted, but Nina and Bernie aren't convinced and challenged him to put his phone away until the end of his shift. Reluctantly, he agrees to do so, while Bernie talks about phantom vibration syndrome. Bless him, she thinks Roy wants to look that up.
Yeah, which he probably does.
That, I don't have phantom vibration syndrome, but when I do feel my phone vibrate, and especially when I feel my watch vibrate, it's kind of impossible not to check it.
Right.
And it's very rarely anything interesting.
No. It's when it's like on the other side of the room and you hear it vibrate and you kind of feel it, even though you're not touching it, but because you can hear it, you feel it. Mm-hmm. It's weird. It's weird, man. It's weird.
Actually, here's something that I think maybe kind of like that. My phone is normally in my front right pocket. But sometimes I put it in my arse left pocket.
Interesting.
Because I have many pockets.
You do. And
when
a
it
very
buzzes-
nice shelf of an arse to keep a phone secure.
And when it buzzes in my arse pocket,
You
I
feel it
kinda
in your
feel it.
pocket.
I
yeah.
kinda feel it in my front pocket. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
so maybe I do suffer from it.
I think we all suffer from it in varying degrees, don't we?
I think we're proving that.
Yes.
Later, Roy's phone pings and he immediately goes to check it. It was a meme from Yasmin. It was a Yas meme.
It was a yes meme.
Caught by Bernie and Nina, he hands the phone over to his niece to remove the temptation. And later, Bernie's accusing Dylan of looking at mucky photos on his phone, but it turns out that he's just looking at pictures of space. That Nina has to pry Roy away when he tries to vicariously browse through Dylan. Then Roy's day without his phone has been difficult, and he realises he's spending far too much time on it and intends to restrict himself in future. Nina goes off to make soup and a baked potato or do a shite or something, and Roy, he's just a moment on his own, and then he's instantly back on that phone.
Well, he looks at it, but then he flips it back down, doesn't he?
No, he finishes off by picking it back up again
Oh, yeah.
and
Scrolling.
starting to scroll again.
Yeah. I hate this. You're right. What we should be focusing on is finding Haley's anorak. Mm-hmm. Now that we have Evelyn and Roy for a very brief time together again.
This is meant to be funny, I think.
And it's not. It's not.
It's
because,
maybe meant to be funny, or it's maybe meant to be endearing, and it's neither of those things.
Right. It's like, oh, look at the cute old man addicted to his phone like a teenager.
It's like, why are you ruining Roy?
Right. Yeah. Totally happening.
Roy not having a phone and having a deliberate distance.
Right. And being
between-
so bitchy about it. Mm-hmm. To go from that to, I guess I should have a phone just in case Nina almost dies again, because that seems to happen every 6 months or so.
It's frequently, yeah.
To-
It's just like, you get 2 bistro raids for
Right.
one Nina almost dying.
Right. And I mean, it was only 2 weeks ago that Carla had to explain to him why he couldn't send an eggplant meme.
Right.
I'll never say aubergine. I just said it. But it's an eggplant. Because eggplant is a funnier word.
It is. If that was as far as it went,
Yeah. Because that was funny.
Roy had a phone, he texted inappropriate emoticons,
And had to have that explained to him.
and then it's never mentioned again.
Yeah. That would have been fine.
But if a storyline comes up in the future where it's needed for Roy to have a phone,
Right.
we've kind of planted the seed that Roy's
Right.
got a phone now.
Yes. That's as far as it should have gone.
And see if you were going to get Roy a phone, see if you were Nina and you're going to buy Roy a phone, you're determined for Roy to have a phone.
Yes.
You wouldn't get him a smartphone. You'd get him those deliberately ancient
Right.
brick
Flip
flip
phones.
phones.
Didn't he want a flip phone? And they said, no, we're going to get you a smartphone so that you can... Because one of the reasons why she wanted him to have it is because of the
back group thing.
The back group thing. Right. So it had to be a smartphone.
The back group thing that was working perfectly well without him.
Well, it was Nina having to do the heavy lifting in communicating to him what was said in the Bat group, and that was annoying to her, as it should be.
Oh, it feels like they've taken it too far.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, reel it back in, people. Reel it back in.
yeah.
Eggplant, funny.
Yes.
Roy
Maybe
being,
with a couple of little spray emojis.
right, and a peach.
Sure.
Roy going to his phone for everything. Less so. Less funny, less appropriate to the character, less everything. And this is coming from someone who predominantly works on her phone, so has her phone out pretty much all the time.
Just you referring
Because
to
of
yourself in the
work.
third person again.
Yes. Yeah.
Gavin hates it when you do that.
Well, Helen doesn't give a fuck what Gavin thinks.
Oh, that was my joke.
And now it's mine. I've taken
Never.
it. Your joke. It is mine now. But anyway, yeah, I hate this.
Yeah, I'm not
Can we
keen on it.
can we just erase this, please? Because it's not good.
It's kind of making me
Who's-
dislike Nina as well.
Whose idea was this? Her hair keeps getting blonder.
That's fine. I don't care about that. I don't like her involvement in this and the fact that she's to blame for it. It was almost saved by Bernie.
Right.
Bernie accusing Dylan was quite funny.
Right. And Bernie's story of that time that Yasmin sent her a cocktail recipe by mistake.
Wow.
That was funny.
Yeah, we need
Bernie saves
she's
95%
she's saving
of the
quite a bit.
show
saving
that she's
quite a bit
in.
these days. That's true.
She's carrying this show on her shoulders.
And remember, we didn't like her to start with because they didn't know what her character was supposed to
Right,
be.
yeah.
But by God,
Now-
they fixed it.
Now she's the Stan Lee of Coronation Street.
Every week, I take a 30-second clip of the show that features at the start of the podcast where someone says the title of that week's podcast.
Right.
And every week it could be Bernie.
Yeah.
And I have to try and make it not Bernie
Bernie.
every week.
And it's tough
It is tough.
because she's got the best lines.
I'm trying to think who it is this week.
And when she doesn't have the best lines, it's Dev or one of the other Alhans who has the best lines. And she's typically in the scene with them.
Oh, it's Todd this week.
Oh, is it Todd? Wait. Which Todd thing?
Wonky Ewan.
Oh, the wonky Ewan McGregor. Okay. That guy didn't look anything like Ewan McGregor.
Not one single bit.
And didn't sound like him either.
Let's move on
Anyway.
to Caddy Shacked Up, talking about Bernie.
Woohoo!
On Monday, Nina
This
rolls.
I love.
Bernie is bragging to Gemma about how shit hot she is at golf and how she thrashed Dev. Then Chauncey comes in and says that according to Dev, he'll let her win. Gemma thinks this is quite sweet. I'll give him fucking sweet, says Bernie. So Bernie goes round to the shop and she's crushed by Dev's ruse, saying she's not going to try out for the ladies' team now. Dev is upset and insists that Bernie played a great game, but maybe he didn't bring his A game because she was a beginner. He suggests that they go out now and play again, and this time he'll be Tony Jacklin, and that's a famous golfer.
Is it?
From the 80s, I think.
From
The UK.
yeah. He's no Jack Nicklaus. Or Arnold Palmer, who is a favorite in this house. Not for his golfing though.
No, for his
For his drink of choice.
iced tea and lemonade,
Yes.
preferably with a bit of strawberry. Back home after the game, Bernie is cock a hoop because she beat Dev again. She nips off for a shite, which allows Gemma to check with Dev, who admits that he really was trying to win this time and Bernie really is just that good. She's a natural, he says. In fact, he says, in all the years he's been playing the game, he hasn't seen anyone take it so quickly as
Right.
Bernie. He's clearly
She
burned
likes
at this.
to knock balls around.
He's clearly burned at this big time, but manages to put on a fake smile. Later, Gemma checks with Bernie to make sure Dev is okay with her being good at something, which is a weird thing to... Why wouldn't he be, asks Bernie. He's a grown-up, and this is something that we can do together. But at Dev's house, he's got the putter out in the living room, and he is fucking furious.
I love this scene with him and Aadi.
He's hitting the floor with his putter, and he's got the little putting rug out. He's been beaten twice in 2 episodes. Aadi points out that he's better than Dev too, and Dev didn't care about that.
Right. And he also points out, it's nice that you and your missus have something that you're both like and you're both good at.
Yeah.
This should be a good thing.
Aadi, for the brief moments that he's in it, is a little shining light of just wonderfulness.
I like watching the progression of his beard.
Yeah, it's coming along.
Yes, it is.
Dev pretends that he didn't hear the subtext and what Aadi was saying. On Wednesday, Gemma goes to Dev's and winds him up about being shitter at golf than Bernie, because she says that that's the kids speaking a bit now, but Cleo's speaking. We're just calling her Cleo now. We're not calling her Cleo. We're not even pretending they're trying to call her Cleo. We're calling her Cleo now.
Right.
But Cleo's speaking better than the other, so she's tempted to tape that one's mouth up
Right.
to give the other ones a chance.
Right. The one girl is better at talking than the boys.
Right.
So she's going to shut the girl up to make the boys feel better. Gemma, what you doing, girl?
Well, it was a joke.
Was it? Because
Yeah.
she did buy those plasters.
No, it was a dig at Dev and Bernie. Back home, Dev turns up with a set of Aadi's clubs to gift to Bernie for the trials. He apologises for not being 100% behind her. Get 100% behind me now, she says, and I guarantee you're hole in one. But the trial doesn't go well, and Bernie will not be making the ladies' team. Her background is in crazy golf, she says, which was just so funny. Dev is furious and wants to take it to VAR. He says that she was done. Later, Dev goes to the quad house looking for Bernie and promising to pull some strings at the club. Bernie has got over it already and has already handed Aadi's clubs back to him. It seems Aadi didn't know that the clubs had been given away in the first place.
Which is hilarious.
That's hilarious from Aadi, who isn't even in that scene.
Right,
But the fact that he'd be like confused as to where these clubs are turned up
Right.
from. That's brilliant. Dev now seems to care about this more than she does. Later, Gemma asks if Bernie's just pretending to be suddenly shite at golf again, but she denies it, although she says that she'd
No,
rather...
she kind of admits it.
Well, she denies it with a smile.
Right.
And says that she'd rather get her hole in the bedroom than on the course.
Right.
Which seems that she did throw it to keep her man in a good mood,
Right.
after all.
Yeah, and plenty of sexy time.
And that's confirmed later at Dev's house, where she casually makes the putt that Dev kept missing on Monday before skipping up the stairs to get her hole.
Yes, her
And
hole in
that's-
one.
And that's as far as we get in that storyline. Yeah, that's... See, if the Roy stuff was trying to be funny,
Yeah.
this was funny.
Right, yeah. And all of these characters are doing things that make sense for these characters. It makes sense for Dev to be insecure, but kind of sweet about it. You know? Because he's insecure about it, but he won't let Bernie see that he's insecure about it.
True.
And then he gifts Aadi's clubs to her and, you know, is indignant that she didn't make the team and all of that stuff. So, you know, he's not being an asshole about it, which has happened to me a number of times when I'm really good at something. Not with you, obviously, because you're a man
I like to try.
and not a wee boy in a man's body. But yeah, that makes sense. Bernie preferring sex to golf
Oh, that does make sense.
makes sense.
That does make sense.
Gemma being disgusted by the idea of her mum and Dev having sex makes sense. Aadi and Asha both giving their dad a hard time about this whole thing
Yeah.
makes sense. Chesney being a dick
No, it totally makes sense.
totally makes sense.
These are characters playing their character.
Right. Yeah. And being written well by
Oh,
writers
yes.
who understand who those characters are.
Yeah, that's a good point. This is a really good example of what happens when characters are given a storyline that is a situation that kind of affects all of them, and there's room for surprise in it
Yes.
still, but people are behaving the way that their character kind of suggests that they should, or they should be given a little helping hand along the way by secondary characters that kind of push them back onto the right path, like I feel Aadi did with Dev,
Right.
and like I feel Asha did with Dev as well.
Right. And how Gemma did with Bernie a little bit as well. And I like how this kind of further cements, it furthers along their relationship, Dev and Bernie's, but it also furthers along these two families coming together
Yeah, that's true.
as a cause and effect of this relationship, which I also really like.
Yeah,
More of this, please.
Angry Dev was just great.
Yes.
Oh, Jimmy.
We love you, Jimmy.
From the Nick Cage never not 100% skill of acting. It is much appreciated.
I can see him as both a vampire and a cowboy.
And Caesar.
Yes. And also playing himself in a movie.
Naked Caesar. With his baguette.
Weeping over Paddington 2 with Pedro Pascal. I can see it happening.
All right. Move on to our penultimate storyline tonight is Bhaji to bike. Finally, we're getting this again. This, for the first time in a couple of weeks, we're getting some more of Peter's trading story. On Friday, Peter is in the knicker factory. He can't shift his tablet that he's managed to trade the onion Bhaji up to. So the onion Bhaji became a pen, and then the pen became something else.
It was like a strainer or something? It was a kitchen thing.
Oh, it was a cheese grater.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
And we never saw what happened to the cheese grater, but
Right,
somehow
because Roy said no thank you to the cheese grater. And I think Sam said no thank you to the cheese grater.
we've gone from the cheese grater to a tablet, which I think is a fairly big leap.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive until you see the tablet.
And we haven't seen how that happens. And,
No.
and I'm a little annoyed at that. But anyway,
Yes, more of that and less of Roy being addicted to a phone, please.
Carla's already bored with this, so walks away while Peter is talking. But apparently the bet runs out on Monday. This is a new rule. And if Peter fails, he has to buy Carla a leather jacket, and that's a new rule as well. Peter goes to the garage, and I think he wants to swap the tablet for some tools that
Yes.
Tyrone has, so he can trade the tools up to a motorbike.
Yes.
Or something in between.
Yes.
A spare tablet to stop Hope and Ruby arguing appeals to Ty, and he goes to check with Ruby to see if she wants it. So Peter takes a tablet, leather case included, round to Ruby, and she's thrilled by it. And Ty is happy to complete the exchange until, Ruby discovers that the screen is cracked.
Yeah.
Peter tries
What's
to...
up with that, Peter?
Peter
You're
tries-
giving this poor child a cracked tablet?
He says you can fix it for $5.
That's not true.
Peter tries to downplay it. It's a mere flesh wound. Ty is unconvinced, and the deal is off, and Ruby is appalled that this is the state of the world.
Right. And that she cannot catch a break, this poor child.
What was going on there, do you think? Because Ruby was silent for the majority of that scene, and they drew attention to it, that Ruby's just staring blankly at Peter while lines are being exchanged. And then she says that the screen's cracked.
Yeah.
I don't know why...
Was she
I don't know if
not
I
in
had
that
her-
scene for most of...
No, she was there. She just was staring and not smiling. It was a
Well, she
weird...
was smiling a little bit
Yeah.
and nodding her head.
But not saying anything.
I
I
don't
don't know,
think,
it just
I
felt
don't
like she
think
was
she was
quiet,
actually sitting there the whole time.
Yeah, maybe not. It was weird anyway.
Yes. It's like, remember that time where we could only see 3 of the quads and then we saw only 1 of the quads?
And now we see them all the time, and by God, they're getting noisy.
Yes. It's kind of cute.
Yeah, it's kind of cute. So that's as far as we get with that. And again, this is an interesting little side story that I wish we'd get more often.
Yes.
Because this is it's a Peter storyline that doesn't necessarily have to have anything to do with Carla. Although
Right.
when Carla's in it, she does make it better.
Yes.
But it's intriguing, and it's a nice little social experiment sort of thing.
Right.
That,
And it kind of inserts itself into other storylines, which is kind of nice. Mm-hmm. As it will with the...
what we're about to talk about.
Right, with the stupid storyline we're about to talk about.
Right. I kind of hope he does get to the bike, but I don't see how he's going to get there from...
A cracked tablet.
cracked
If he
tablet.
goes and fixes that tablet,
But he can't...
why would he...
I don't think he can improve it, can he? Is that in the rules?
I don't know. Why would he have accepted a cracked tablet to begin with?
I don't think he looked at it.
Well, that's dumb. Look at it first, Peter.
Yeah, so that was a little Friday little snippet, which I think tends to mean that we'll get more of this next week.
Yes.
Although we're about to move on to the final storyline, and I haven't required my guitar this week. So I'm a little disappointed in that. And I'm sure the listeners are as well.
I'm not.
And it's support like that that's got us through these 11 years. Our final storyline this week is The Art of the Steal. On Monday, in the shiny new precinct, Adam is with Harry, who says that he's not a baby. I'm not a baby. What else is it that Harry says?
Soft play!
There we go.
I miss the soft play years.
Adam tells Sarah that he wants some us time at speed dial. And Sarah is agreeable but distracted by a business call from Michael. So Sarah and Michael go through some designs later. Sarah pretends that she knows what she's looking at and what she's talking about. Michael wants to hit all the contacts on Stephen's list with these designs to try and get a bite from one of them. So that's what they do. And by the time they're finished, it's 6 p.m. and Sarah has missed her date with Adam. And their phone is dead because of plot.
Of course.
She rushes round to the bistro,
Or
full of
for
apologies.
some reason it doesn't always ring, which does happen. That happens with me a lot.
Or I think she said that it
Turns
turns
itself off.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
So she rushes round to the bistro, full of apologies, and Adam is understanding, telling her to just order herself a takeaway.
It's not the bistro, it's Speed Doll.
Oh yeah, he'll meet her back at home while he goes to pick up Harry from Gail. What a guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Adam was pretty good this week, I have to say.
He was good here. He was good in that little scene
with Sam. Yeah, I liked that.
When he gives him some home truths about how the world works.
And I really like the scene that's coming up later with Adam in the factory.
Okay. On Wednesday, in Nina's Rolls, Stephen is very impressed that Sarah and Michael have a meeting with Rufus Houndstooth.
Now, who is the actor who plays Rufus Houndstooth? Because we have seen him in something before, haven't we?
And his name isn't Houndstooth, but I can't remember what his last name is.
Right, but still, that actor, we've seen him in other things, yes?
Rufus Houndstooth is a good name for a character.
Yes. You're still not answering my question.
He sounds like David Jason, but he's obviously not David Jason.
That must be it. That he sounds like David Jason.
It sounds like Del Boy from Only Fools and Horses.
He was in Gavin and Stacey.
I never watched that.
Oh, and no, because you hate James Corden. As everyone.
As everyone does.
Steve Mayo.
I wonder if he's related to Simon.
No, they spell it differently. It's M-E-O. Steve Mayo.
He was in Doctor Who, The Infinite Quest.
That's probably where I know him from.
Pilot Kelvin, and he was in Torchwood as Josh.
Okay, yeah. That's it. That's it. It's Torchwood and Doctor Who that I know him from.
You're so cool.
I am.
So Rufus Houndstooth is a big fish, and he reckons that they need high quality samples for tomorrow's meeting. That's Stephen, that is.
Yeah.
So they snatch a word with Beth on the cake run and ask her to do a side hustle for them to make some samples. She wrangles double time and cash and a takeaway for her troubles. On the street, as Michael and Sarah are trying to play spy versus spy as they get material to Beth, she has to blow Adam off from the conversation he wants to have with her. He wants to have a baby again. The timing, though, isn't great for Sarah. She has too much on and she's not sure the time is right anymore. Stephen interrupts with business stuff, so the conversation is kicked into the long grass. In the factory, Michael and Beth are squabbling about her job. There's something about the seam that Michael wants, and Beth is like, look, I know what I'm doing.
Right, yeah.
And Michael
doesn't even know the name of that seam.
No. Sarah comes in and tells Michael to let Beth get working, which puts sand down Michael's foreskin a bit more. Stephen correctly assumes that she's angry from the conversation she had with Adam and his stupid man bun. Later in the pub, all has been forgiven, and Sarah explains to Stephen her reservations about getting knocked up. She did have the baby fever a few months ago, but again, she's worried about the time and the psychosis that she had with Harry, like Carla had psychosis. And Stephen is very intrigued to hear this news about Carla, which seems to be what this whole baby reluctance thing is there to do.
Yeah, because let's remember how much Sarah wanted to have a baby right before the whole Lydia debacle.
Mm-hmm.
That was very much her thing.
Which Adam reminds her of.
And why do characters keep telling Stephen things about characters that they have no business talking about?
Right.
Yeah, it's none of your business, Sarah, to be telling this man about anything that has to do with Carla's health, mental or otherwise.
Yeah. It wasn't just a case of tell him about the psychosis. Tell him about the psychosis and how she nearly lost the factory and how she nearly lost her relationship and how she went AWOL and
Right.
she
It's like
we might as well have had a cabbie called Mitch come in to explain this to Stephen.
And this is not the first time that Sarah has done this, because let's remember who it was who told Stephen about Tim's mum
Right.
and her issues with men, which he then manipulated.
Right.
Sarah, just keep your mouth shut.
On Friday, early morning, and Beth is giving Michael's front door a good pounding.
And I like that.
Her sewing machine has jammed with some of Michael's material stuck in it.
And I like that.
This is surely going to give the game away to Carla. She needs his help before the other knicker people arrive. At the law office, Sarah turns up to talk about what happened yesterday. She promises she won't prioritise her shitty business over the relationship. And I think they maybe get their hole in his desk. Anyway, Michael and Stephen are raising suspicions from some of the other knicker people as they try to fix the machine. When Carla comes in, Stephen blames Beth, and Carla tells Beth she can work later to make up for the lost hours. And Beth is so pissed off about this because
Right.
she's worked all through the night, and now she's working an entire shift again, and is going to have to work late to make up for this.
Yeah.
She's furious.
Poor Beth.
Then-
I now feel sorry for her after slapping a child.
And then Rufus Houndstooth meets up with Michael and Sarah in the bistro to talk designs. Rufus, channeling his inner Del Boy trotter, describes Sarah as quite the hot hottie, and no one is sure if he means it. He loves the designs and wants to see the factory. Gulp, says Sarah and Michael, and she warns Stephen off about the incoming Rufus Houndstooth by text.
Yeah.
With Carla otherwise engaged, Stephen gives Rufus the guided tour, which consists of speaking to Beth for some reason. Either way, Rufus is impressed and wants to talk numbers, so Stephen pushes Rufus out just as Carla arrives back, but she sees them and wonders what
Right.
they're up to.
And assumes that it's another Stephen, claiming to own the factory
Right.
or being the boss
and
and all
she's
that
not
stuff.
wrong.
No.
Back at the bistro, Rufus Houndstooth is suspicious of the scene at the factory, but Stephen downplays it by calling Carla his over-enthusiastic PA. Rufus loves the look of Carla's breasts, and then offers Michael and Sarah an exclusive contract and promises to make it worth their while, whatever that means. Contracts will be drawn up by close of play today. Then Rufus Houndstooth has got a taxi from Peter. He's as much of an arsehole to Peter as he was to everyone else, but doesn't sexually harass him at least. Rather, he tries to shame him about the value of his watch, and then brags about the massive deal he's just struck at the factory.
Yeah.
This guy really is a total prick.
Right. Yeah. And it's unfortunate because so many opportunities to have a lesson here about standing up to pricks like this.
Yeah, Sarah should be saying, like,
Sarah
I
should
don't
be
want
like,
to have him.
yeah, I don't want to do business with this guy. But instead she says, he's a creep, but I guess I'll do business with him because I'm so desperate to get my business off the ground. And it's like, what decade is this?
Right.
She's such a throwback.
Mm-hmm.
It pisses me off.
Laurence is right. I'm telling you, Laurence is right.
He didn't say that about Sarah, though. It's true about Sarah, though.
Mm-hmm.
It's true about most people on the street.
Laurence is right.
Yay.
Michael, Sarah and Stephen are on the champers waiting for the contracts to come through. Sarah admits that Rufus Houndstooth is a creep, but business is business, and then she attempts to speak in a Canadian accent. Later at the factory, Beth has fallen asleep at her workstation. Poor Beth. Carla comes in and wakes her up while a passing Kirk, with a yo-yo, explains how late she was working last night. Beth tries to blame this on Kirk being an absolute melon, but Carla's suspicions were raised already, and now they are more so, and she tells her to start talking or lose her job. So Beth tries to cover, but Carla thinks all this stuff is linked. We've got the machine breaking down, we've got Stephen acting suspiciously, and we've got Beth falling asleep. All of this is linked.
Yes.
So later, Carla goes to the broken machine and finds a scrap of material in a little bin drawer that they've got. Then Peter is back at the factory for the second time this episode to fill Carla in
But not like that.
and to explain about his run-in with Rufus Houndstooth and his mammoth deal that he's just struck with the factory, apparently. Carla is getting furious about this.
She should be.
And she goes to Michael's old locker, and in that she finds a sketch of some designs. So Michael, Sarah and Stephen are still at the bistro. Sarah calls to chase up the contract from Rufus Houndstooth, but he's not answering his phone. And worried, Stephen goes back to the factory. And when he gets there, Rufus is already there and he's with Carla, and the creepy prick has already been appraised of the situation. And Carla has renegotiated a new deal with Rufus Houndstooth, who doesn't appreciate Stephen's deceit. Stephen begs, but Carla points out that he has no designs to offer. She owns those designs now. And she does.
She does.
This is the social network all over again.
Right, yeah. These designs were created on company time in my factory with my materials.
Sarah, Michael and Adam are called to the factory to have all this explained to them, while Adam's just there as a legal representative.
Right, yeah.
Carla shows them the material and the sketch, talks about files that she found on Sarah's old computer.
She goes full Columbo.
Which makes Sarah kind of, yikes. The designs were made on her time, on her equipment, in her premises. You can't prove anything, says Sarah. Yeah, I'm not so sure about that, says Adam. And Carla throws them all out, leaving Stephen to make a confused or angry face. It's difficult to tell.
Right.
And that's how we end this week's
Yeah,
episode.
she's about ready to fire his ass into
Again.
the sun.
Again.
Yeah, I liked the way Adam is just standing there smirking the whole time, because he probably knew from the second he stepped in there that Carla was going to be right, and she was.
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't even try to gloss it over with Sarah either.
Carla doesn't make this big song and dance about something that she's only a little bit sure of.
No, she's
She's got her
100%
ducks in a row.
confident. Yeah,
Absolutely about this.
yeah, this is why we like Carla.
She got them banged to rights. And
It's kind of funny that she didn't point this out to them sooner, though. That's my only quibble, is that she knew that they had left to start this business. I guess because she didn't have that crumpled piece of paper.
she didn't have the crumpled piece of paper, and she didn't have the piece of material stuck in the machine. Those
Yeah.
were the vital
Right.
pieces that kind of changed
That's
the whole
true.
deal.
That's true.
But yeah, she's on it in a flash.
Yeah.
I've got to say, I'm kind of Team Carla in all
I'm
this.
absolutely Team Carla. I was Team Carla from the very beginning in all of this.
I think she was maybe a little bit pulling rank a little bit with Sarah with the whole Christmas card thing. Sarah took that to heart far too much.
Yeah.
But
Carla was absolutely right to pull rank, because she proved herself right by the way Sarah acted. The person I feel sorry for
is Michael. Yeah, because he's been kind of caught up in
all of this.
Sarah's desire to
Right.
prove Carla wrong.
Right.
And all that's happened is Carla's been proved right.
Right. Yeah. And he lost that
He's lost
good
his
job to support his child. Because remember, he's a single dad.
He's lost his job. Now he's lost the promise of having his own business.
Right.
Or is going to have to come up with brand new designs.
Yeah.
And start all this pitching stuff all over
Oh,
again.
right.
All from scratch, and with no machines to make
Right.
any samples.
Yeah.
I think he's F'd in the A.
Yes, he is F'd in the A. And at least Carla compliments him on the first sample that he made. So at least she says, well done, Michael, and puts credit where credit is due, which is all on Michael, because it's his ideas, it's his designs. He made the first mock-up. What has Sarah done?
She hasn't done anything. She's introduced him to Stephen.
Right. She has annoyed her uncle for contacts, and then she's made phone calls.
And investment.
None of this is her idea. None of this is her work.
No, and
She got Michael fired because Michael, let's remember, Michael said nothing when Sarah says, right, we're out of here. And he's like, what?
Right.
Yeah, I've never been a fan of Sarah, and I continue to not be a fan of Sarah.
Well.
I know you like her little leather skirt. That's
I'm
not
only
enough.
Human. I'm only human.
That's not enough for a character. And, you can buy me one in my size.
His mistake, I think, is not
Speaking up
pitching
for
his
himself.
ideas to Carla.
Right. And not speaking up for himself when he has the opportunity to.
Because Carla doesn't rate Sarah, so that's why Carla doesn't listen to Sarah's ideas.
Right.
But Carla, I think, rates Michael as,
Right.
as a good salesperson.
Yes.
Maybe not to the Jacob levels of sales, right?
Right.
But still a decent enough salesperson. So I think she's more inclined to listen to his ideas.
Right.
If he'd pitched them to her. But he
Right.
didn't do it.
No. No. And in fact, he didn't pitch them to Sarah either. He was working on them during his break in the factory, and Sarah just happened to look over his shoulder and say, "Oh, these are great. Let me help you."
She saw a way out of the factory for
Right.
her.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's
Using
exploited
Michael.
him terribly.
She really has. She's not a good person.
Carla, though, isn't going to look a gift horse in the mouth here.
No.
She's got her hands on some good designs
Right.
from Michael.
Yeah.
I imagine she's going to say to Michael,
Come back.
you can come back.
Yeah.
And you can be a designer
Right.
/ answer the phone
Salesperson.
guy.
Yeah.
Right. But Sarah's
Sarah's done.
surely got no chance. And Stephen's probably got no chance. Because why would Carla invite both of them back into the tent when they've been outside pissing in for so long
Absolutely.
and really taking the piss out of her
Yeah.
by all this?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This Rufus Houndstooth character can go fuck himself.
He was cartoonishly bad. You know, it got to a point, it was like, all right, enough already. We understand what this character is supposed to represent. He does not have to say this shit anymore.
When he's talking about Carla's rack,
Yeah.
I kind of think, I don't know if this is a less is more kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where it's almost at the point now where he's daring Sarah and Michael to do
to
business
say
with
something.
him. Right.
Right. And
as far as-
neither one of them do. And that's
It's
terrible.
deplorable. It's deplorable.
Terrible.
And then he's shown off his watch to Peter saying, this watch cost more than you'll ever make in your life. I'm
Right.
like, really?
Yeah. And Peter just does not give a fuck
He
about
doesn't
this
care,
man.
but-
He's not impressed.
But say you earn 20 grand a year and you work for 40 years. That watch isn't costing that.
No. And Peter must make more than 20 grand a year.
You'll make you make a living out of it.
Right.
Certainly.
Yeah. The cost of living is way more
And
than
he's
20
been
grand.
And he's been a bookie in the past.
Right.
And he's been a pub landlord in the past.
Right. Yeah. He is not a fool, that Peter
watch
Barlow.
isn't like a £8 million watch.
No. No. And this guy is not an £8 million man.
No. His name's Rufus, for goodness sake.
Rufus Donahue, by the way.
Rufus Donahue, that's it. Of Donahue's, not of Houndstooth.
Yeah.
Houndstooth
Houndstooth is
a
so much
design.
better. Houndstooth is so much better, especially since he's in the fashion business.
Because you could claim that you invented the Houndstooth design.
Or that it was your grandfather or your great grandfather even. Yeah, Rufus Houndstooth is much better than Rufus Donahue, but I know it's going to annoy or confuse people, so I figured we'd better at least acknowledge that his name's not really Rufus Houndstooth.
I thought we aimed to annoy or confuse people. I thought that's why we do this, isn't it? Has an aim for the money. Anyway,
Unless someone wants to pay us in coffee.
which is always welcome.
And buy our merch, because we know one person has our faces in their cupboard.
A couple of people have T-shirts.
Do they?
Yeah, we've got sent photographs of them.
Oh, there was that one guy, but I thought that was the T-shirt that he made.
No, that was ours.
Oh.
I think. I don't know, it was so long ago. Anyway,
know.
that was the week that was Coronation Street.
Yes.
Tell me, Helen, what was your moment of the week?
Devin Aadi with the putt-putt carpet. And the fact that Aadi was able to get the ball in the little cup and that just crushed Dev. And Aadi laying some truth bombs on the Devster. It was great. It was great. That whole scene just charmed me so much. And just, it's these brief shining moments that remind me why I like this show.
There we go. Praise indeed.
Yes.
That is our
Moment of the week.
Moment of the week.
our boring moment of the week.
Rufus being deplorable for the 100th time.
It was a bit too much, I think.
It was way too much. Yeah.
And it did become boring.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, okay, we get it. This guy is a sexist prick.
He's the fashion industry guy from the 80s
Right. And
that surely is replaced by now.
yeah.
Surely. Tell me that this guy's replaced by now.
Yeah. Yeah.
How is this guy successful when he's like this?
Right.
And I'm meeting with people that he doesn't know.
Right. Yeah,
If this
absolutely.
is what he's like with people that he doesn't know.
In fashion? Seriously, he would not get very far at all, I would imagine, considering that fashion is predominantly run by women and gay men.
I'm not sure that it was necessarily boring, but
It got to be boring.
It infuriated me so much. I'm going to say that it was.
It got to be boring because it got overused.
Griffiths, I'm sorry, it was your first week in the show, but yeah, you were getting better lines than Torchwood, I think. That is our...
Boring moment of the week.
And I never watched Torchwood, so I don't know if that means anything.
Remember, you watched one episode with me, and it was the one where the alien was having sex with somebody and like on top of a washing machine or something, and you're like, yep, nope, I'm done.
That does sound like something I would say.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Because Torchwood was much more sexy than Doctor Who. Because of what's his
Difficult
name?
as that is to believe.
That guy that you hate who's Scottish and also American.
Oh, John Barrowman. Yeah,
Yes.
I can't stand him. If you can't
You
stand
don't like
John
a lot
Barrowman,
of Scottish men.
right, and you can join my club. We're the talk of the street at gmail.com, and we're at Corrie Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can shout me and Helen a coffee by heading to ko-fi.com. That's ko-fi.com/the talk of the street. Check out the clicky section of voggle.co.uk for links to a merch store and YouTube channel. And if you're so inclined, please leave a rating and a review on the iTunes or your podcast provider of choice. Thanks for making it to the end of another episode, and we will be back next week with more
Talk of the street.
The Talk of the Street.
Bye.
Cheerio.